Hi, this is Kimberly.
And this is Calvin.
Welcome to All My Shape podcast. Today we are super excited to invite Stacia. Stacia is course leader of London College of Fashion in ULL. To talk about her own brand story and also course of fashion entrepreneurship and innovation. So welcome, Stacia.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
I'm wondering, for people who might not be so familiar with you, would you like to have a very brief intro about yourself?
Sure. I've had a lot of different backgrounds, if you will, through my journey, which I think is really important actually for an entrepreneur, because as you guys know, as an entrepreneur, you have to wear lots of hats. So it's important to have lots of experiences from which to draw from as you are on your journey of launching and starting your business and scaling and growing. So I actually started out with fashion businesses on the side. My first fashion business that I launched was a vintage clothing shop that I had in my studio apartment in New York City. I found all these amazing vintage finds, and most of them didn't fit me. So I started inviting friends over, and it became a thing. So it was like, started out with friends, then it became friends of friends, and then strangers. And it was like a big party where people would bring wine or Prosecco or whatever, and try on vintage clothing and accessories, and it was lots of fun. And through that, I started designing jewelry. So I would get boxes of broken bits of sort of costume jewelry, etc., and I would take it apart and sort of repurpose it, and made necklaces and cuffs and collars and all kinds of stuff. And that was really kind of my launch into sort of the real fashion world, because again, started out wearing it myself, and then friends and friends of friends. And then eventually there were several boutiques in New York City that took my jewelry on. And I did a trunk show with Henry Bendel. Again, though, I wasn't quite confident enough to launch it as an official business. I always kind of did it on the side. And then I met my now husband, who is British and lives in London because I'm American. And he said, have you ever, considered actually launching this? Because I was, making lots of money at pop-ups, etc. And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, it seems like such a sort of scary prospect. And he said, well, maybe there's a course that you could take that, would make you feel more comfortable launching it. And maybe you could take the course here in London, and that way, we could live closer together, because we were living long distance for a year. So I actually found the MA Fashion Entrepreneurship and Innovation course at London College of Fashion 8 years ago. So I took the course myself. Yes, I did. And I worked on my jewelry business while I was on the course. And I'd had a really big idea to sort of mass customize my jewelry. So basically in pop-ups, I had probably 30 or 40 customers who would say, I absolutely love this design, but do you have it in this color? Or, do you have these types of brooches? Or can you do it all in gold or all in silver? Or, they wanted to play a part in, the design of it. So my idea was to launch a website where customers could kind of customize a bit the design. So that was my final major project. And on the course, I met my now actually former business partner, who was on the course to do mass customization in women's wear. So at the end, when we both graduated, she said to me, what do you think about starting a label where, you're doing jewelry and accessories, I'm doing the ready to wear, and we'll do a brand based on mass customization. So I said, okay, let's look into it. Let's do the research. So we did some research, and we realized that for me, it would be very difficult to scale because everything I was doing was handmade. And for her, it was that women really just didn't want to spend the money, because it was quite expensive to do sort of customized pieces at that point. And remember, this was like 8 years ago. And it, would take 4 to 6 weeks to get something like that made. And there's just so much available on the high street, right? That women were like, you know what? Not really sure I'd want to spend 350, 400 pounds on something that I could probably find very similar somewhere else for, 50 or 100. Also, I don't want to wait that long. When I want something, I want it now, right? So this is the struggle that we all have in the fashion industry, kind of going head to head with the behemoths. And then I got engaged and started looking for a wedding dress. And that's where Prim Clover was born, because at the time I, was looking, I thought, I'd look on Pinterest and I'd say, oh, I really like the top of this dress, but I want the bottom of that one. And I couldn't seem to find it. And there were designers who were willing to make minor tweaks, but not really allow you to customize your wedding dress. And I thought, this is the biggest day, you're spending all of this money, you want what you want, right? So I turned to my former business partner. I said, well, what about doing customizable wedding dresses? And she was like, oh, I don't know. It's like such high stakes, it's like somebody's big day. And again, I said, well, let's do the research, because women are willing to spend more money on a wedding dress, right? So if they're able to customize it, then for sure they're going to say, yeah, I mean, I was going to spend, 1,200 pounds on this dress anyway. So if I could spend 1,200 pounds and actually get the dress that I want.
Right.
That's much better.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the fact that we could do the dress in 4 to 10 weeks was a USP, because most brides have to wait 6 to 9 months. So we got lots of women saying, yes, absolutely, this is a great idea. We got tons of support from accelerators and incubators, and there were lots of venture capitalists and investors interested in the idea too, because for the first time somebody was democratizing wedding dresses, and the fact that we were kind of doing everything online, allowing women to customize the dress online, get the dress at home, try it on at home, try lots of different options, get the dress custom made and then shipped to their door. It was like, wow, somebody's finally innovating in the wedding space, because it's such a sort of traditional, old school industry, part of the fashion industry. So, yeah, we got lots and lots of support and excitement around the project. And then, as you get into it and you realize, all of the problems and hitches and all of the little things along the way, again, you kind of have to look at it and do the research and, pivot a little bit. And yeah, ultimately we realized the market just wasn't ready for it. Even though lots of women were saying, yes, I want this. When it came down to it, they had, this idea in their mind of going to a boutique, having the champagne, with their mom or their bridesmaids or their, best friend or their sister or whatever. And so the idea of having the dress delivered to their home. And even though we, suggested have a big party, you can have the champagne, you can have your friends. It was still, it was hard going. It really was in the beginning. And so went back to research. And again, you're going to keep hearing research from me, because I think it's really, really a key part of
business
being successful in the fashion industry. So went back to the drawing board, went back to the research, and spoke to a lot of millennial brides who were saying, well, I love the idea of spending a lot of money on a wedding dress, but it's just going to sit in a wardrobe somewhere or, in my loft space. If I'm going to spend the money, I'm going to spend it on, a destination wedding or on my honeymoon. They were looking at spending their money in other areas. And this was our core customer, because we're offering everything online.
Right.
So again, had that conversation and realized, well, if we design a wedding dress that worn together, these separate pieces, looks like a wedding dress, but if you could take, the separates and wear them again as with everyday clothing, what about that? Again, everybody was like going nuts. We had tons of press at that point. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were getting married around that time. So it was like a really big, you know, boom in the wedding industry. Everybody was buzzing. And so, yeah, we were really fortunate to get a lot of press around that time. And at that point, it was really critical because, you know, do we take the business and go down this, you know, path of just doing the, you know, mix and match pieces, or, you know, do we continue on with the customization? And for me, I felt like the customization, we tried it for several years. You know, we got a lot of sales, but it just wasn't really taking off the way that we anticipated. And brides weren't really using the tool the way we thought they would. Most of them would just send a photo in and say, can you do this? And we'd say, well, yeah, because it's this silhouette, it's this neckline and this skirt. And, you know, so it felt a bit more like we were doing custom orders as opposed to, you know, allowing the bride to customize. So I said to my business partner, look, I really think we need to go, you know, the line was called Maverick. I said, I think we need to go this direction. I think we need to change the website. We need to change our direction. This is the way forward. And maybe we can consider customization at a later time when the market is a bit more ready for it. And she disagreed. She said, nope, we started this with customization. That is all I want to do. If we're going to make any changes, then I think we should go back to, you know, customizing ready to wear or occasion wear or something like that. But I see this as being just one collection and that's it. So we were at a stalemate, and yeah, we ended up saying, you know what, I think it's time to kind of part ways. And, you know, if you want to do that, that's great. If I'm going to do this, then I'm going to, you know, sort of follow that. And at the time I went and had a coffee with the former course leader of the course, because we stayed quite close throughout my journey. And I said, I'm not really sure if I'm ready to, you know, climb that mountain again. Because as you know, it's like climbing Mount Everest. It's a massive undertaking. And by yourself, as you know, as you said, Calvin, it's difficult. It's hard to do by yourself. And even though I'd done it before and I knew what to do, I just thought, well, maybe I should press pause and take a breath and, you know, collect my thoughts and see what happens. And she said, why don't you come onto the course and do a few sessions with the students, because we've changed the course now. When I had done it, it was very sort of a traditional course where it's lecturing, where you know, sit in a lecture format and somebody comes in and tells you all about entrepreneurship or all about finance or all about whatever. And, you know, I did get a lot out of the course at the time, but she'd completely reworked it and revalidated it so that the course was now learning by doing. So when you come onto the course with your idea, from the start, you're working on it all the way through and you're taking all of the steps, but you're doing it in a safe space. It's like, it's okay to fail. It's a safe space to fail because you've got not just the team coaches. So she said it's a team coach approach. So rather than being a lecturer, you're a coach. You're there to ask the questions and get, you know, and we don't call them students, we call them team entrepreneurs. So you're there to get the team entrepreneurs to take ownership and come up with the ideas themselves because they have them. The ideas are within you. So it's about asking the right questions to draw it out. And I thought, okay, why not? I'll come in, I'll talk to the team entrepreneurs. I'll see what this is all about. And I guess the rest is kind of history. So I started out doing that about 3 years ago. And then Chitra, who was the former course leader, decided to retire in November. And she said, I've only made this decision. I think COVID had a bit to do with it because she was traveling. She lives in France, so she was kind of traveling back and forth. And she was like, I don't think I could do this. But also she felt like, you know, we had sort of built the course then from, you know, from her revalidation of it up. And we had iterated and we'd learned a lot. And she felt like she was leaving the course in good hands. And I'm so thankful that everything happened the way it did, because I finally feel like I'm really doing what I'm meant to be doing. So Yeah, you asked for a short intro, but
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's
Like
awesome.
you changed the course from really more like academic kind of like course into the more hands-on kind of thing. And it almost feel like it's a little bit more like internship for entrepreneurship. I think that's really interesting because you're allowed to fail and try new things and be like a little bit more adventurous. So for now, like there's a lot of young entrepreneurs, especially like
In your class.
yeah, and in so many new like people who just want to enter into like entrepreneurship or go to your class. So they have social media and they have like so many information. And with the COVID change, is there any like suggestions or like advice for them before they actually start their entrepreneurship?
Or is there like any advice for young entrepreneurs according to the now fashion trend? Is there any advice for them?
Absolutely. I mean, again, I'm going to go back to research. It's so important to know your market, know who your core customer is, know who your competitors are. And when I say competitors, I don't mean high street. That's not your competitor. Your competitor is that other startup, you know, that's on the other side of, you know, London or, you know, in Birmingham or whatever. That is your competitor. So what are they doing? I mean, I'm not saying don't look at what the big guys are doing, but you have to consider that when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money, right? So it's harder to do the big box marketing and, you know, ad campaigns, etc. It's about finding those small sort of grassroots things that you can do and building a community, finding those early adopters, those fans. So that's why knowing your customer is so key. Finding them in all the ways that you can, have that conversation with them, get them on board, word of mouth, they're telling their friends. And again, that's how I grew my businesses. It was always, you know, it started out with friends and then it became friends of friends. And then before you know it, you know, other people out of the blue were like, oh my gosh, I love that. Where do I get it? You know, so it's so important to have those like early adopters, those key sort of first customers who really believe in you and you have that relationship with them so that when they go out and they wear your designs, be it jewelry, shoes, you know, ready to wear, whatever it is, they're telling everyone, you know, I got this from such and such a designer. This is where you can find them. They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, whatever. Again, choose your platforms wisely because, again, knowing your core customer, knowing where they are they fans of TikTok or do they prefer Pinterest or Facebook? I mean, I know Facebook is kind of dead, but who knows? Who you design for isn't always necessarily your customer, right? Because who you design for may not be able to afford what you're doing. So your customer actually might be an older demographic and they might still be using Facebook. So it's really about knowing your customer, building that relationship with them. And then when you're thinking through sort of future proofing, again, this is where the research is so important because you're really looking at the market and what are the trends telling you? What is that information telling you? And really sort of critically analyzing that information and making strategic choices for what you do with your business from there on. So, and again, research testing as well is so important. Testing with your core customer, testing with potential customer, somebody you might think is your customer, getting that feedback because you can design this beautiful, amazing thing, but if you don't have someone to buy it, you don't really have a business.
Yeah.
Right?
That happens to a lot of fashion business. Like they build great creatives, but just no one would buy it. It's either because of pricing or because of not being exposed to the right people. There are tons of reasons why fashion business like just don't succeed in many ways. And
I get the draw, the dream of being, well, look at Alexander McQueen. He did all these crazy things and, you know, or Mary Katranzu, like who thought, you know, those crazy prints would take off, but they are like lightning striking you is more possible. Like being the next, you know, I'm not saying it's, you know, it can't happen, but it's like 1 in 300 million, right? I mean, it's so rare. So I get some designers feel like, well, I don't want to sell out. My design is my design. So I don't want my customer, you know, telling me what, you know, how they want it. I tell them, but that's changing. It's all changing, especially with social media. It has to be more of an exchange. It has to be a symbiotic relationship. There has to be a synergy there, because again, you can design for design's sake, and hey, you know, if you've got the money and you live comfortably without ever having to sell a design, amazing. I'm so happy for you. But the rest of us have to put food on the table and have to pay our rent. So in order to do that, you know, you've got to make sure that you've got a customer base there. You've got to make sure that someone's willing to pay that amount of money for, you know, that top or the pair of jeans or whatever it is that you're making, right? So it's so important. And if they're saying, I wouldn't wear that way, but if you just did this or that, then yeah, that's something I would buy. And then getting that money from them up front. Okay, I'll do it for you, but you got to pre-order, you know. Pre-ordering, I think, is so smart. It's and I know that people are afraid to do it, but it tells you who is willing to buy, how many people are willing to buy.
Yeah.
And then you've got that money for your production, and you don't have to worry about producing, you know, because we know that manufacturers have MOQs. You don't have to worry about producing, you know, 20, 30 pieces in a size and then, you know, only selling 2 or 3 and getting stuck with a lot of merchandise that you can't sell, or you end up having to sell for, you know, less than you made it for. It's, you know, it happens again and again. So it's, having that relationship, testing, and then making those changes and pivoting if you have to, you know.
Well, I think it's all about like your idea, and sort of kind of like a collaboration with your audience. I think. So I think that's really interesting about like collaboration with like your audience and do the research.
Yeah, I think we have one last question, which is about the course. So we know that this course is an experiential learning and also a very entrepreneurial journey for everyone who attend the program. And I think, Stacia, you also mentioned there are some essentials tools that you need to build up as a skill as an entrepreneur. So I'm just wondering, like, how can this course empower you with this? And also, one very important question that I have for our startup is the funding part. What is the funding part that you have during your own startup journey, or maybe for the course? How can we get more opportunity of that? Or could you give us some tips outside of the course or in your own experience?
Absolutely. So for the first question, the course is sort of based on 3 pillars, and that is the individual, so the business that you're working on, the leadership aspect, you as an individual, as a leader, right? And then also team, because as you know, you can't do it alone. You may not be able to hire a team, but you're going to have to pay people around you to do certain things, right? So you have to know how to deal with your team. On the course, you do that through sort of team experiences. And there's a lot of talk about who you are as an individual and understanding yourself, and a lot of self-awareness, so that you can build an effective team and make sure that it's not, you know, all one-sided, that you've got people around you who can kind of fill in those gaps for, you know, knowledge, skills, and experience that you don't have. So those 3 pillars kind of carry throughout the entire course. And it is about sort of wider team learning. So currently we've got 22 team entrepreneurs on the course, and we've got a mix of entrepreneurs who actually have a business that they are looking to scale and grow. And then we've got, you know, a large pool of entrepreneurs who this is just their idea. They're just blossoming with it. And it works. Yeah, it works really well because everybody learns from each other. those who have more experience are able to share their experiences for those who are just kind of starting out. And for those who are just starting out, they've got new ideas and innovations that those who have been in business for a while aren't really thinking about. So it's a really lovely mix that we have going on, and those three pillars work really well. And we combine those three pillars into boot camps where you're using kind of all three things together to work on your individual business and project and a team project as well. So that's kind of the course. Now, one of the things that we do quite often is presentations. So almost every single week, the TEs, the team entrepreneurs, are presenting, and that's getting them ready. That's getting them comfortable talking about their business and talking about various aspects of it in front of other people. Right. And then at the end of sort of the first term, block one, they do a big pitch, and they do it in front of a panel of industry experts who give them a lot of feedback and comments, etc., to get them, kind of, okay, these are the things I need to work on. These are the things I need to think about. These are the things I need to go back and test and research a bit more. And then by the end of block two, so the end of the term before they go into their final major project, they have another big pitch. And depending on where the team entrepreneurs are with their ideas, sometimes we do bring in investors to hear their pitches. But more importantly, we bring in people from incubators, because we realize that when you leave the course, you might not quite be ready for investment yet. You're probably ready to get into incubation. And incubation is such an amazing opportunity, really. I mean, I'm very fortunate in London that there are quite a few incubators that are free. So you go in, you have to pitch to them, they have to like your idea, but you grow with them, you get mentors, you get pitch coaches, and then very often they will have some prize money.
Prize money?
Yes, yeah, or a grant or something like that, and at the end of it, or they'll put you, in front of investors, because that's what they're doing. They're incubating you and accelerating you to get ready to really pitch in front of investors. So I would suggest that sort of first and foremost. The second thing I would say to most entrepreneurs, kind of still starting out, well, definitely go for an FFF round, and that's friends, family, and fools. So do a Kickstarter campaign, do a GoFundMe campaign, because your friends and family, they're your core, right? I mean, they're your foundation. And your aunt, Betty might say, yeah, I've got 20 pounds or, $20 or whatever to give you. And all of that counts. Honestly, all of it counts, right? So, if you go big and wide, and get, 1,000, 1,500, whatever, again, as sort of starter money, and then you're rolling, right? And then you can look into sort of crowdfunding as an option as well. Granted, there's a lot of research that goes into crowdfunding because it's a whole beast in and of itself. I mean, it's so important to sort of meet certain goals as you're doing it. Otherwise, you kind of like get kicked to the bottom. And if you don't hit your goals, you don't get the money, etc. So definitely be wary of, if you're doing crowdfunding, be ready to do it. It's a big campaign and it takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there are tons of grants available. There are lots of, sort of government funded ventures out there that will back your idea. Again, it varies country to country, but definitely look for those free money is free money. I mean, again, a huge part of my job for Prim Clover was looking for free money. I mean, I spent so much time researching where we could get grants, filling out all the paperwork, doing the pitching, doing the, essays or whatever it was that they, wanted. So it's out, that money's out there. And yes, you will have to compete with other businesses to get it, but again, it's free money, because once you get an investor, that investor owns a percentage of your business.
Yeah.
And usually they take a really big chunk at the beginning and not for a whole lot of money. So there again, you have to be careful and do your research on who's investing in you. And you really want someone who completely believes in you, believes in your product, has experience in that area, and really wants to help you grow and can connect you. Because ultimately, if you're giving them that much of your business, they're your business partner, and they need to be a partner. You don't want somebody who's just like, here, I'm going to throw some money at you, and then I'm out the door. I'm not going to stick around for the ride. You really want someone who's going to support you and be there for you and help you get to that next round of funding. It's so key to have that support and to have them be able to open doors for you. So yeah, I mean, I really kind of feel like, even though most entrepreneurs, again, if it's not about the dream of being, the next Alexander McQueen or Mary Transu, the dream is, having some big investor swoop in and you cash out for millions. And there again, they call them unicorns for a reason. It's rare. So again, you be really, really diligent in your research and find the right person if that's the route that you want to go.
Stacia, you make me want to join that program. I feel that you're such a great course leader, honestly.
Yeah.
So
thanks.
I think for most of the fashion people, I study fashion, so we have no idea of this. I mean, I started to have a little bit idea because I started this with my sister, but before that, when I was a student, I have literally zero idea.
Yeah, this course is for you.
Yeah. So I feel like every student from fashion school, if they want to start their own business, I think this is a really amazing course to go to.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for letting us know this amazing course, because it's blown my mind actually.
Thank you so much, Stacia. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.